ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this week's episode of Couch Trip, Therapy for Everyday Life with your hosts, the one and only Eddie Reece, and my name is Billy Courtright. We're here to explain the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts, and what it's all about as it pertains to psychotherapy, therapy in general, counseling, or anything related to your mental health. Eddie and I were talking off air. We were having a conversation about the Olympics. We were talking about the drive and the preparation and one's commitment to being their best self in a given moment. And it kind of dawned on me, and Eddie had an opinion, which I can't wait for y'all to hear, which is, why is it that individuals, I'll say some individuals, because I have no reason to presuppose every single person walking the planet is exactly like us, but why is it, Eddie, that some individuals can't stop striving for some ideal of themselves, either performance or intellect or relationships, that is in some ways just better than they are right now? Where is our inability to find contentment coming from?
But yeah, you're touching on the key, is that striving keeps you from ever feeling contented, at least for too long. It comes from, just the culture, this Western idea of more, bigger, better, faster. I think it's psychologically, neurologically, it comes out of our survival mechanism that if I'm not getting better, then, there's some sort of threat to my existence, because this is not enough. And that comes from this very common thing that it's never enough. Nothing's ever enough. I'm not good enough. What I have is not good enough. The amount of money I have isn't good enough. The relationship I have isn't good enough, which I think for most of us primarily comes from a lack of emotional connection, healthy emotional connection growing up. One of the more damaging things that happen to us in our childhood that isn't really acknowledged is best described as emotional neglect. So there's not an active being mean or trauma to what people would think is traumatizing. You're not beating your kid. You're nice to them, but you're not acknowledging and doing a deep dive into who they are emotionally, because you weren't taught that. You were taught to ignore, especially particular emotions. And so you teach your children that. So there's an emotional neglect. That's the way I think about it. And this, most everybody I see in my practice, certainly in my own life, this was a big part of my childhood. That if I'm sad, if I'm crying, I've talked about the story of my dog dying. And, I sat and cried about that in deep, deep, deep pain. And the most telling part of the picture is that I was doing my crying alone. So I had already figured out that it wouldn't do any good to share that with somebody. So I have to keep that to myself. So as I continue along in my life, that's what I'm going to do, because of the emotional neglect. There wasn't a big person there with me as I cried and saying things to me like, "Oh my gosh, I can see how much you hurt. Yes, this hurts a lot. It's going to hurt for a long time. Yeah, I can hear how devastated you are." And I would be able to tell my story to them. And what happens in that case is that I'm learning, my neurology is forming around the concept that when I feel this and express this, I'm going to be accepted. I'm going to be, we would call it, cared for, loved. But neurologically, I can stay a part of the herd. Whereas while I'm crying alone, I have to be separate from the herd, and that's always a threat neurologically. So this drive to be more, I think, is also a drive in part to correct that emotional neglect and be able to be with people in those emotional ways and have them say, yes, you can be part of the herd, expressing that.
Well, yeah, and certainly there's that spirit of improvement or never ending improvement of an athlete, or you're equating it to survival. The irony wasn't lost on me though. If we're breathing and we're thinking we need to improve to survive, it flies in the face of the fact that you've made it thus far. But I guess that's just a little bit for me to learn or understand. But we've talked about this in the past, and it's something that I don't struggle with it as much as I'm just curious. I'm not satisfied as a person. I'm very much trying to get to a certain place, but I don't know what that's going to look or feel like when I get there. But I know I'm not feeling as if I'm there yet.
Which is more than likely the way you've always felt. And I can use myself as an example. I can remember a time in my life of moving into a new place, not really having, I think at the time I actually didn't have any income. I was living on my credit cards and thinking, okay, if I can just figure out how to have $1,000 a month, I could pay for everything and have plenty of money. Okay. Well, I achieved that at some point, but now $1,000 a month, I'd lose the house I live in. I would, I'd wind up, back in that sort of a living condition in a much smaller city. you can't find
Lincoln, Nebraska. Here we come.
Yeah, on $1,000 a month income, it's really difficult. So the thing that I would point out here is that we always, maybe not always, but pretty much always wind up at the place we're trying to get to. And when you do, it's still not enough. So, I mean, my life, oh my gosh, to live in a house, this house is 2,400 square feet, I think. To live in a house this big, I'm so old. The house that the five of us lived in was probably about 500 square feet. That's 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. So you can imagine how small the rooms had to have been. There's a living room, there's a kitchen. And now I'm in this giant house compared to that with 2 of us. And, it's like, it's a little bit too big, really. So even to have more can bring discontentment because it feels like too much. So instead of it's never enough, it's sort of never just right. It's like Goldilocks story, too hot, too cold, just right. It's never quite just right in so many of our areas because we're trying to feel like we're a permanent part of the herd. And we can't do that if we can't really be ourselves, which means cry when time to cry for us, laugh when it's time to laugh, and, hang out, do nothing when we want to do nothing, and sleep half the day away if we want to. The taskmaster voice inside of us won't allow that to happen without some pretty severe consequences emotionally.
Right. Okay. So as we started this conversation, we're talking about the Olympics, and there's clearly a competitive desire in each and every one of those athletes. It's patriotic for a lot of them, but I think before they found themselves patriotic, they were in love with a game or a sport or getting better at something. I don't want to say clearly, but in my opinion, that's a picture of healthy. And I don't know if it's mentally healthy. I know there's a lot of issues that athletes face, but if this drive for improvement, this drive for acknowledgement, these awards that they seek, the medals, the podium, the first place, all the qualifying, the hours upon hours of practice, you're talking about the sport becoming their life. At what point does competitive and healthy self-improvement become obsession and unhealthy?
I think pretty much, I would guess at that level, almost always is. I was thinking about Katie Ledecky this morning, for whatever reason. And, you know, she's just, it's unfathomable that the top 20 times in the sport are hers. Okay. I mean, what other sport is there where, say, some golfer has the top 20 scores, you know, the basketball player has the top 20 points scored in a game. I mean, it's not possible. So I was thinking, wow, you know, I mean, that really is some kind of achievement. And so I thought, okay, she's going to go make a living, maybe doing inspirational speaking. So I'm like, okay, what would that talk be like? And what it turned into is, if I were that, what would my inspirational talk be? And what it turned out to be was, I'm here, you know, I'm here to inspire you. That's why you hired me, to talk to you. And I'm going to inspire you, but probably not the way you want to be inspired. You'd like to be inspired to reach that place that you're trying to get to be more, to be better, to be more like me, you know, and have this many medals and this many records. And I'm going to attempt to inspire you by telling you that may not be your best move, because in my own life, yes, I've achieved this. Yes, I've done more, and I continue to do more. Set another record the other night. Okay. At the same time, there's all these parts of my life that I could talk about with you, and then would, if I were actually going to do the whole talk, where I've really suffered as a person. My relationships have suffered. My life outside of swimming has suffered. It's not as full as yours probably is. Yes, I've traveled all over the world, and I've seen hotel rooms all over the world and swimming pools all over the world. You know, that's not what my idea of traveling all over the world really should be. I should be exploring outside of the pools and the hotel room, like you would do. But I don't have time.
Yeah.
It would be that kind of inspiration to get you not to strive so hard, because you're going to miss out. There's a cost to everything.
And I think that's universally true. In the amount of sports documentaries that I've consumed in my life, which is up there, there seems to be a common thread for excellent, high achieving athletes.
Right.
And that is, almost to a person, they will say that at some point throughout their life or career, they have that moment of clarity where they start to question whether or not it was worth it.
Where it's worth it. Yeah, because of the losses that mount up.
Well, yeah. And this brings me to, the NFL inducted their Hall of Famers last week. And growing up in Chicago, certainly a Bears fan, the Bears inducted 3 athletes into the Hall of Fame, and they played in the Hall of Fame game on Thursday night. So I was listening to Devin Hester's Hall of Fame speech, and he acknowledged that he had to do what he did in order to achieve the success he achieved.
Right.
But in the process of going down that road or path of behavior, he was an absentee father for at least 5 years.
Right.
And, you know, in thanking his wife, you know, he somewhat acknowledged, and then he further went into it in a subsequent interview that I saw. He wasn't around. Like he practiced morning, noon, and night all year long. He was compelled. He talked about his "Am I enough"isms. He talked about it. You can look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it was very common.
Watch that.
So he's in the Hall of Fame now, and he's like, you know, I look back and yes, I've accomplished this. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm forever immortalized for football fans and visitors to Canton, Ohio. But it came at a cost that I'm now aware of and working to improve. But this was the statement that kind of got me.
Yeah.
But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change it.
Right.
Says the guy entering the hall.
Right. Yeah. And most people wouldn't. And the reason I think most people would settle on, you know, I really wouldn't change a thing, is that you don't have the lived experience of living that
That's
life.
right.
If you did, then you could actually make a decision about, well, I think I'll go ahead and live my life again this way. You know, I think that'd be better. But we don't have that. We don't know what would have happened. it makes me think there was a Frasier episode, a TV show, where they played that out. I think he's at a red light, and then the first half of the show is he turned this way, and then the second half of the show is he turned this way, and how different his two lives were. And then at the end of the show, the two cars wind up merging back at the stoplight again, and now he's got to make the turn. So, I mean, it was really cool. And any of us who's lived a while can think back, if I hadn't have made that phone call, if I hadn't have gone to that place, if I hadn't have met that person, I wouldn't have had that experience. And if I didn't have that experience, would I have had the experience after it? Would I have met this person? Would I have gone into this career? No way, no.
No, and then when you have the perspective to look back, and it's like that saying, if all of us were to throw our problems into a bag and put them in the center of the room, we'd all hope to pick our own bag.
Sure, yeah. I don't want your problems, man.
The unknowing is what kills us, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and it's it's food for thought. It's interesting. I enjoy talking about it. The reality is, no one wants to change. Well, I shouldn't say that. In my opinion, I wouldn't want to change any of the behaviors, the mission critical, crucial behaviors that would have altered the path so much so that I wouldn't have my children, or I wouldn't have met my wife, or I wouldn't be doing my work, or I wouldn't be living here.
Again, you don't know what that life would really be like.
Of course. But what I do know is I don't want to give this up.
Well, I mean, if somebody though could somehow in some sort of matrix like setting, if you turn this way and this life doesn't happen for you, but this life does, take a look at this. Okay. And you go, whoa.
It's quantum theory.
Sure.
It's the idea that each individual course of events or circumstances plays out in opposite or opposing decisions somewhere else in the quantum realm in real time. That concept is so, I can't even articulate it very well.
Right.
But it essentially means if I go right in some quantum realm, I went left. If I chose this path in some quantum realm, I chose the other. And somewhere I have kids, so I've seen Into the Spider-Verse, and maybe if you're listening to this podcast, you've seen it as well. And it's this idea, there are infinite possibilities of our life. Right. And the longer we live, the more infinite they become. That's even a concept worth considering. But the reality is, we only know the one we're in right now.
We only know this one. And to kind of come back to our theme, trying to make it better it really sort of winds up just making it different, because your idea of better, when you get it, is going to have this cost over here, but we don't consider that. What if I want to achieve this, so I go for this, what am I going to not do? What am I not going to experience? So if I want to be a professional athlete, here's the things I'm going to have to give up. And again, there's no way you can go, well, it would be worth it, because you don't know.
No, it's true.
Because you can become a professional athlete, which means you never get out of AAA.
Well, again, okay, let's just pivot for a moment. And let's talk. We talked about professional athletes. We talked about that drive for protection or perfection. But I know how we equated that to survival and childhood emotional neglect, and it's great. Now we're going to take all that and we're going to pivot into something that's probably a little more relatable. Okay, most people watching or listening to this podcast are in some sort of career or school. Let's just leave it there. Someone's either being educated or working, doing the best they can. All right, so. For those of us that want next year to be a step up from this year, let's say, however you want to bring that into your reality, because I'm one of those people. I'm a personal development person. I listen and watch TED Talks. Yeah. I'm an avid, voracious reader. Awareness to me and education and experience is just exhilarating. Whether I'm better for it or not, that's arguable, but I'm still in search of that eternal buzz, and I can get it from a book. I can get it from a drink. I can get it from a vacation.
Yeah.
But the reality is I'm just soaking up as much of life as I possibly can. That goes back to when I'm a child. My FOMO is high. That fear of missing out.
You're after dopamine.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
that is exactly what I'm after.
You're forever searching for dopamine, which is your idea of better. The more dopamine I get, the better.
But it's not better as much as it's fulfilling.
Which is better for you?
Okay, fair enough. It's desirable.
Yeah.
It's desirable. Yeah. But I'm not saying I'm a better person for having done that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm more fulfilled for having done that. And had I not done that, I would have bugged myself for a long time. How would I have felt had I? And that is the fear of missing out. And that is the culture we live in today. We can talk about professional athletes. Very few of them are listening to our podcast, but every single one of us has a smartphone, and we've been neurologically rewired with dopamine and lit up frontal cortexes as a reality. And that's why we scroll. And that's why I'm not watching the Olympics, but seeing the highlights on X.
Yeah, because this is something I had kind of a semi-aha moment of watching ESPN, and they're replaying a kickoff return from deep in the end zone, and the video starts, and once the runner got to about the 20-yard line coming out of the end zone, then they hit fast forward and took him to about the 15-yard line down on the other end, and I'm like, we all strive for highlights. That's all we want in our lives. And then even when we get the highlights, we want to hurry up and get through it. I'm like,
it's true.
It's another sign of the apocalypse.
It's our attention span. We have an attention span of a fruit fly, and my kids I can't even imagine. I didn't get a smartphone in my hand until I was in my 30s.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that I have 8-year-old, 10-year-old that have had a smartphone in their hand, for years already. Not all day. I mean, they don't take it to school with them.
I'm staring at one right now so you can see the video, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, what are the chances of that? I mean, it's growing up, I tell the kids these days, high tech in my day, was a long cord on the phone in the kitchen.
Or no cord.
I mean, oh God, when we went to no cord, that was space age. But I mean, just getting that long cord on the one phone that was in the kitchen essentially located so you could go into any of the other rooms with it. That's how small.
And did you have the anti-tangle rotating doofach that?
Oh no, God, no! That's I'm talking.
That was that was
way back, man. Yeah, I'm talking way back where you had to.
I still don't know how that
once
works.
A day untangle that darn thing.
Oh my God.
But yeah, to go from that to sitting here and doing a broadcast with my little phone and little computer and my microphone and my lighting, I mean, it's like, really? And it's still not enough. It's never enough. I mean, we do as we usually do. This time it was you more than me, fiddling with something going, why can't I get this right?
Yeah.
I want it to be better. I want it to be, it's not good enough. And how that's just so ingrained in us. And I think as I listen to all this, I think where I want to end up with it is to maybe conceptualize this getting better differently, in that when you just say, I want it to be better, you're saying, I'm not content, I'm not satisfied, I'm not actually able to stay in the present moment. I'm trying to get to something later, something after this. And I think of all the different things I've learned about being in the present and how important that is. I've kind of adopted, I heard Nick Saban say it, to be where your feet are. Can you be here now? And it's almost impossible, I think, to do that if you're going, you're not in the moment enough to even live it. And that's kind of the message of, can you, it's not that you have to give up striving, but you want to do it in a way that, in my mind, would feel slower. That I have to slow down to be here. I wrote a saying, I'm pretty sure I made it up, but it says, you're not in a hurry. The hurry is in you. And so that you can change that. You can do things quickly without the hurry, and you can do things slowly with the hurry. So the hurry is not faster. The hurry is just an anxious feeling of, I gotta, no, not really. I gotta answer that email. No, not really. You're a grown up, and I always fall back on something. I've long forgotten who the comedian was, but it's like, I just moved out of my house. My parents just moved out of my parents, and I called them like at 3:00 in the morning. And it's like, Mom, Dad. And they're like, what is going on? And it's like, I'm standing in front of the refrigerator with the door open. I've been watching TV like this close, and I ran through the living room with scissors. It's like, I'm a grown up. I can do what I want now. So you don't have to get to that. And it's, at this point, I talk about command words. If you hear a command word, have to, you've, in a sense, given your power away. You're being commanded by, I tend to picture it's out here, telling me I've got to. And I think our basic human nature is, if you tell me to do something, even if I want to, I'm going to rebel against. And so we're in this constant state of battle and rebellion, of trying to comply and trying to go, nah, leave me alone. So if you can take a command word, and instead of, well, I got to get to that, so I choose to get to that, which means I can also choose not to. So be where my feet are. What do I really want to do? And it might be, do something that's more satisfying to you than just chore after chore after chore. I read a blog this morning from, I don't know if I know the last guy's name. The name of it is David at Raptitude. And he writes about mindfulness and things. And he made a really good distinction, I think, talking about your to-do list. Those are like tasks, things to do. And then you've got this other list of things you would like to do that are more aspirational. And he said that he calls those quests, because the to-do list is sort of satisfying in the moment that you get some things done. But if you do a quest, then it's more life-changing. And I'm like, I like that,
Well, I can relate. I mean, it's kind of what we were talking about a moment ago, which is, yes, there is this strive for constant, never-ending improvement, and the comparisons to people that have done better, greater, more, and you in my mind, I can reverse engineer and say, well, if one can do, I can do. Whether that's true or not, I choose to believe it, and then it ends up being this quest for the new feeling of leveling up, which is, what did it feel like to reach that income level? What did it feel like to enter that country? What did it feel like to scale that mountain, or navigate that river, or whatever the case might be? There's at the end of it, it's dopamine, it's adrenaline, it's satisfaction, and it's oxytocin or epinephrine or norepinephrine. I don't know what it is. It's a bunch of hormone chemicals running through my body that I am addicted to, essentially. And the closest thing that we can get to that is from our phone. But it is a quest. It's a quest, as Clark Griswold would say, it's a quest for fun on his way to Wally World. But it's a quest for something. And I believe, my opinion, you're the doctor, you'll tell me, but it's my opinion that it's a quest for that chemical hit that I might not be able to quantify, but I've gotten it before and I want it again.
Yeah, it very much is kind of a chemical thing. But I think what David is talking about in his blog, and the way that applying it to the things that I know and talk about is that if it's a quest, it's not a have to, it's a want to. And a quest, I have to get to this email. I have to, get prepared for this talk or whatever. What I want to do is maybe, move to another country, you know, and live out my life someplace else, just to have that experience. I mean, the times I've traveled to Europe, I'm like, wow, this would be interesting living here. It really is different. And see what that's like. That and a quest involves something unknown. A quest involves adventure. A quest involves facing uncertainty and challenging yourself. Whereas answering an email or preparing for a talk is not that much of a challenge. It doesn't really change me that much. It's not an unknown. And those things, I think, become chores, is the way that I see them, which means I've given my power away again. And it's not something that I think I really want to do, but of course I want to do because it's the thing I chose. Nobody said you must do this whether you want to or not. I said I'm going to choose to do it, and now I turned it into a chore. It's not really a chore. It's something I wanted to do. But you lose that. And I think that's what one of the points that I'm hoping to make here today is learn that process of losing that. When you lose that sense of control, command, you're in charge, you're choosing, you're not being made to do much of anything. You don't have to participate in capitalism if you don't want to. And there are costs if you don't, and there are costs if you do. You could probably make it backpacking around the world, I mean, you probably could figure that out. Right off of the bat, I wouldn't know how to pull it off, other than becoming a beggar,
living off the land, a survivalist, a minimalist.
Something like that.
Now we have titles for all that.
Yeah, but there are people that have done that, I have friends that when I was in undergraduate school at college, we all loved snow skiing, and they moved to Crested Butte to work one season at the resort there. And as far as I know, some of them are still there, 50, 40
Montana?
years later.
Is that Montana?
Crested Butte, Colorado.
Is it?
Okay. It's on that highway to go to the mountains where Vail, Breckenridge, all those are. And Crested Butte at the time was the least developed. I think it was Bo Calloway of the Calloway family and Calloway Gardens who bought the entire resort, and he wanted Georgia people to run it. And so he put this call out to college students to come out there and work, and worked out well for me. I was in the Air Force at the time in Oklahoma, and I would make this drive to Crested Butte and get this 3 places to stay and ski. And so it worked out well for me. Some of these folks stayed there, and that's because they like, I want to live this way. I want to live cheap. You don't make a whole lot of money. You live in communal kind of housing, and in the wintertime, you work in the ski resort. In the summertime, you work for a rafting guide company,
Well, it goes to show a rich, full life is not the same to everyone. Like some people would look at a bank account or the square footage of their home or their address or zip code. And then for others, it's just being in nature or being in a certain place or experiencing certain things. So we do this often, and it's just the way we think, or way I think, is now let's bring it home by asking the question first, for those of us who are living a life with some discontent. There's, call that whatever you will. I'm striving, maybe you're not, but I know a lot of people that are, certainly personally, professionally, and with social media and the keeping up with the Joneses and the comparisons and the competitions and the tribalisms and the right wing and the left wing and red and blue. And like, I think we're all trying to get we're trying to either be right or win or I don't know. But again, the question is going to be, how do we go about this in your opinion, healthy, mentally healthy way? How do we do this in a way that you would describe as living out the human experience in a rational and adjusted, your opinion again, way?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of those things that's really, it's not complicated. It's just a lot. You can't do any one thing. But you work off the concept that you don't stop striving. The striving is not the problem. I mean, everything in nature lives by grow or die. So that we're not going to change that. So there will be striving, but it's this belief that reaching a particular level, even if it's just more than what is now, is really going to bring you any kind of real lasting satisfaction, which is what I think contentment is. Contentment is a satisfaction that lasts longer than a day or two. Contentment is, yeah, I got a lot to do. Yeah, boy, there's a lot on my plate. But I'm not stressing about it. I mean, that would, for most of us, that would be an amazing achievement. I'm not anxious, pushing in a hurry. I mean, I'm obviously striving. I spent a big pile of money to produce this podcast, and I'm hoping people will watch it. And I mean, that's why I'm striving. I want something else added to my life. So I changed the verbiage. I want something more. It's not necessarily more. I can't, and here's kind of a new thought. You really can't have any more. You got 24 hours.
That's right.
You can't have any more. You can just have different. So to do the podcast, I'm going to not do this. I'm going to spend the money on the podcast, which means I can't spend it over here, which means I'm not going to do that. So I'm just shuffling the 24 hours I have. That's all you're ever really doing. You never get more.
It sounds like the cliche, it's the journey, not the destination. It reminds me.
Because the destination's always death.
Well, right. We're all, no one's getting out of here alive, right? We talked about it last week.
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
So, what are you in a hurry for? That's where you want to go.
But you also touched on something which is incredibly interesting, which is that there can be and likely should be, based on what I'm hearing you say, an acknowledgement, recognition, and dare I say, appreciation for where you are in this 24-hour compartment on that journey toward that thing or place that you're striving for. Am I hitting the ballpark there?
Yeah, because you're now moving toward, practicing gratitude. And if you practice gratitude, I'm thankful for the house I'm in, and I am. Then you have to sort of bring yourself back to the moment, that I'm grateful for this. And real gratitude doesn't involve a but, so I'm grateful for this, but then you're not really truly grateful. So slowing down, practicing gratitude, happiness, contentment, the thing we're striving for, what was it saying? It's not wanting what you don't have, it's appreciating what you do have. And
which to a lot of people would say is what helps grease the skids towards that place of more, which is, to say that you get in the habit of achievement, you get in the habit of problem solving, creativity, and working through things. And you pick your head up after 3, 6, 12, or 9 months. And all of a sudden you have progressed, you have moved forward, you are in a different place. I couldn't imagine, Eddie, I could not even fathom, me personally, just as my opinion, I could not fathom a world or a life where I wasn't in a growth mindset, whether it be experiential. That's me. I'm not right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not,
Yeah, I mean,
but that's the reality.
I think it's more about moment,
I agree.
to sit and rest, which is a really big topic in my field, of how much we reject rest. We look at it as being lazy, as not productive, that I don't want to do anything that I can't call productive. And if I do nothing, that's not productive. Or if I, sit and goof off, I'm not being productive. I say quite often to clients, I go, it sounds like what you're doing is you're living your life so that your tombstone says he was very productive. It doesn't say beloved husband, wife, child, grandchild. It's, he did a lot, he achieved a lot. Does Katie Ledecky really want her tombstone to go gold medal winner? More medals than anybody. I mean, what are we really after? And that's in therapy and the way that I live my life, which is therapeutically. It's the exploration. It's a constant exploration. I told a client the other day, he was saying, so you want me to kind of do this way, think this way, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, yeah, that makes sense, but I can't tell you that the best way to do it or that it's actually going to work. All I can do is tell you it works for me. And it worked for a lot of my clients, and it seems to make sense. And 5 years from there, a year from now, 10 years from now, I might tell you something different. Because I don't know, because his whole thing is he wants to know, he wants to be sure, he wants certainty. And I just want to keep introducing uncertainty. There's nothing but uncertainty. And I'm certain about that.
That's right.
So I don't know. Here's my best guess at the moment. That's about as good as any of us can do. 97% of the universe is dark matter. So what do I know?
I'll give you the last word, but this has been a really interesting conversation, and my brain's going 100 miles an hour. And I personally feel that as we record this in August of 2024, there is much more awareness, in my opinion, on health and wellness, holistic thinking, the acknowledgement that rest matters, meditation, just having the wherewithal with energy and nutrition and creative outlet to fulfill your words, the entire human experience, or not fulfill, but have access to an appreciation for the entire human experience. In my view, based on how you and I doing this work for about a year now, and what I choose to take in on a day-to-day basis, my appreciation and fascination with the human mind and human experience and gratitude and acknowledgement and being where your feet are. I think we're in an incredibly enlightened place. Yes, there's a lot of dark matter. I'll give you that. But you cannot argue that we are a more enlightened population on this planet today than we were.
Yeah, but I agree with you 100%. At the same time, I also go, and that's been true at every moment of human history.
Which proves the point that
we're never going to get anywhere.
No, I disagree, young man. I'm going to leave you with, it proves the point that the question that started the podcast was, is it right? Is it healthy? Is there anything wrong with striving, constantly never-ending improvement, all those things? Athletes wanting more medals, better scores, more or better times, whatever the case might be, the obsession. The question was, is that healthy or non-healthy? But the reality is, regardless of that answer, this is a societal human condition thing that has propelled us over the last 1,000 years or so to be where we are, talking through a computer, broadcasting all over the world. And you know what? We're enlightened and more informed, and that information is making us perhaps
the cup's half full, Eddie. I come back to, wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where you get up in the morning and you go, well, Billy needs a barn built. Okay, let's go build a barn. And that's your day, and you go, you sit down at the end of the day and you look at the barn the community just built, and that's it. I mean, that's the pinnacle.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I agree.
wouldn't that
And
be
you've
a
said that
nice
before.
world,
But again, I think there's more empathy, compassion, and kindness or
of course.
recognition of it today
Yeah.
than there was when I
yeah.
was a kid in the 80s.
There's no Spanish Inquisition anymore.
Oh, just look at the playground equipment for crying out loud. My kids would never be allowed near. North Fulton County Schools would never put the rusty slide at the or those giant swings that you could literally get to about 30 feet off the ground and let go and propel yourself to two broken legs, half a football field away. And it shocks me to think of what was the known recreational activity back then. But again, we've been rambling. This has been a good one. Eddie, bring us home. Final thoughts as it pertains to personal development, striving, competitive edge, not enoughism, however you want to wrap us up, and then I'll take some.
It's not, none of that is going to save you. None of that's going to give you what you want if you aren't aware of what it is you really want. So, I mean, it comes back to awareness. If you really want a deeper emotional connection with people because you've been deprived of that your whole life, you're not going to get it by making more money, having a bigger house, having a nicer car. You're not going to make it by being more well-known, winning 15 Nobel Prizes or 20 gold medals. You're never going to get it that way. So, it comes back to a theme in our talks of awareness. What is it you're really after? And do a deep dive into that. But as a final thought, what popped in my head is to make the point that the way you and I do these podcasts, and for some reason I want people to know this, is it is totally unscripted and it is complete improvised. And for all of you out there, Billy and I talked about this quite a bit in the beginning as to how we wanted to structure it. And I don't want to operate any differently in this realm. I don't want to sit down and plan it out. I don't want to do a what is it? Is it 15-minute TED Talks that are 1,000,000% scripted,
Memorized
and given. I don't want to do that. I want the spontaneity. I want the rambling. And I guess I'm saying that to let people know that if you're listening and you go, what? We'll get to something interesting in a minute. Just hang in there.
That's right. It's like the weather in it. It's like the weather in Atlanta, folks. If you don't like it, stay put.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll change. Boy, we've been having these long stretches of too much rain, not enough rain.
That's right.
Yeah, instead of back and forth.
Debbie missed us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Couch Trip Therapy for Everyday Life. And what I can tell you is, although we're unscripted, from the hip and rambling at times, this is for Eddie and me, Billy, 100% authentic. We talk about
This is my idea of a good time. Yeah.
Yes. Two guys waxing poetic about mental health, the state of things, human behavior, behavioral science, experience. To me, it's absolutely fascinating. And let me just say, I could not be more grateful for the opportunity to share an hour a week with you, Eddie, and hopefully the world soon, because this is the kind of stuff that I find absolutely fascinating. We hope you do too. If you do, please let us know. Put a comment below, perhaps a question. If you like the podcast, don't keep it a secret. We're going to keep doing it week in and week out, and we're going to pick our heads up here and have a whole bunch of fans, and that's what we're after, is really changing or impressing one or two lives a week would be a great way to improve, and that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah, man, we're working for that gold medal. I'm not gonna be happy with a silver or bronze, man. I want the gold.
No
Like,
participation trophies here.
no, man. I watch the people get all excited. Oh, we won a bronze medal. I'm like, you lost.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the
Yeah,
episode
man.
of the Couch Trip, Therapy for Everyday Life. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye, folks.